Okay, so in this video we're going to do the computation that's on the screen, and so I think the easiest place to start is to try to compute the value inside the parentheses, which is the sine of minus 3 pi over 4. And so if we think about that calculation first, the angle, so let's see, this is minus pi over 2, right? So minus 3 pi over 4 is over here somewhere in quadrant 3. And if this angle is minus 3 pi over 4, then that means the remaining angle to get through a half of a rotation, or we call that the reference angle, is pi over 4. And so computing the sine of minus 3 pi over 4 would be the same as computing the sine of pi over 4. We just have to make sure we get the correct sign, meaning positive or negative. So if this angle is pi over 4, that means I know the ratios of my sides of my triangle. And of course these would both be negative. Oops, that should be a negative 1. So I can see that the sine of this angle, sin of that angle, is opposite over hypotenuse minus 1 over root 2, right? So this value is minus 1 over root 2. And then I still want to take the inverse sine of that, and remember that whenever we compute the inverse sine, the angle that results must be in this range, whatever the angle is, theta, or whatever you want to call it. In other words, it must be in quadrant 4 or quadrant 1. Right? So when we compute an inverse sine, the angle either has to be in quadrant 1, right, so it's got to be here, or in quadrant 4, got to be here. And if I'm going to compute an angle whose sine is minus 1 over root 2, well, if I make a triangle in quadrant 1, the sine can't be negative because my opposite side would always have to be positive. Okay, so that means whatever I find my inverse sine to be, it's got to be in quadrant 4. It's got to be in quadrant 4 because if I want the angle whose sine is minus 1 over root 2, that means my opposite is negative 1. My hypotenuse is root 2. That would mean the adjacent side is 1. So this angle right here must be minus pi over 4. Can't be positive pi over 4 because that would give me, if I took this angle and I took the sine of that, the result would be positive pi over 4. Oh, I'm sorry. If I took the sine of positive pi over 4, if I take the sine of positive pi over 4, I get a positive 1 over root 2, but we can see that I needed to result in a negative 1 over root 2. In any event, I don't know if I explained that perfectly, but our result should be negative pi over 4. In other words, we found the angle in this range whose sine gives us negative 1 over root 2. Hopefully that makes sense.